Yo, what's up? Happy Thursday. How everyone's doing? We're back, the Culture and Cannabis Podcast, episode number 21, JC. And we can't see JC right now because I'm in the lead-in right now. JC hates it. But we have an awesome guest today. This person is the operation manager for Digipath Labs. It's Shelby Stanley. What's up? How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me, guys.
How you doing, JC?
I'm doing
You okay? Are you okay that I'm a lead right now, or are you gonna make it? Or
I'm just happy that you're happy.
I'm happy. I'm always happy.
That's all that matters.
So listen, Shelby, we've been seeing lots of stuff in the news lately about labs, some certain things that aren't happening correctly. I don't know what the correct word is.
Why they shut a lab down?
I don't think they shut them down. I think it just gets suspended.
Suspended it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's just due to the fact that they all. I feel like that's what the states first go to is they just suspend people.
Yeah, shutting.
And then they figure out what's going on here, and then they're like they're going to shut you down, or you can keep doing what you're doing.
What are they shutting them down for, Shelby?
So I don't know the exact reason.
Suspending them.
Right, and I don't know. They don't necessarily for everybody make it public. Unfortunately, we went through it a couple years ago, and it was very public.
Only with you guys.
Right, but no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say exactly what they're necessarily being shut down for, but I do know that there's a lot of differences between the facilities and labs and their methods and machines and standards, and it causes for these variations amongst test results, and it affects not only our consumers, but obviously it affects the growers and producers. So I can't say exactly why. I really don't even know.
Right.
I just know that when they come in for an audit, they come in and ask for specific data, or they want to see a specific sample, or we're required to keep retention for 30 days for anything that's failed. At Digipath, we're a little unique where I'm like, keep everything for 60 days.
Yeah.
So we tried to again cover ourselves like that.
Yeah, and
as well.
It almost kind of sounds like that when the health department comes to a restaurant, like if you're working in a restaurant. And I mean, just to be clear here, right?
I think a lot more strict.
Yeah,
I think
it is a lot more strict.
It's 1,000 times more strict than the health department. But yeah,
let's be clear here. So we're talking about labs. So in the state of Nevada, you have to get your products all lab tested, right? You have to get the COAs, right? And so
certificate of analysis.
Right, and
which we got here today.
Looks kind of like this. So everything has to be tested, and that's one of the things that the legal market kind of leans on, of being, better than the black market, right? Because we, when it comes to our meds, we're seeing it tested, and we're seeing the labs, and we're trusting that our regulation process kind of gives us, good and safe medicine. Right, and so that's what you're doing, the good work over there in that sector of the cannabis space. Are you guys, when it comes to labs, is it just cannabis over there at Digipath?
We also test for CBD and hemp products.
Nice.
Right now as well. That's under Department of Agriculture, so it's regulated separately from the THC side. So that's, again, completely separate, and they really don't want any intermingling between taxation and agriculture. So if I have any hemp or CBD questions, I'm calling agriculture. If I have any, THC, metric, production, cultivation, we call taxation. So
do we have, as a cannabis consumer on a daily basis, do I have anything to worry about when I go hit a dispensary?
I mean, I feel as if though, again, like when we were talking earlier, I'm very confident in everything that's tested in the state of Nevada, as long as it has a certificate of analysis with it. And something that I think needs to be pushed more is that these are more readily available for you guys. People should be making their choices based off of this. You should know, not after the fact, that it has remnants of pesticide. You should have the choice, just like you do in a store, to say, okay, well, this has 38 grams of fat, I don't want to eat it, and you put it back. Well, you should know if this has X amount of ppm. And again, we were talking about earlier, heavy metals, that's parts per billion. That's such a small, minute amount. No, we're going to say it's not something you necessarily need to worry about. That's why we gave it a limit, right? Now, anything over that limit, yes, you need to be concerned with.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, again, based off of your methods and your standards and what you do internally, your quality control will ultimately play effect into the final results. So you need to be 100% on top of that. Our QCs are so tight, and we just went through our ISO audit.
What's a QC?
Quality control, just a quality check. We just went through our ISO audit with 0 deficiencies.
And then ISO is?
ISO 17025 is the accreditation that the state requires all the labs to go through.
Cool.
So it just really, like most blood and urine labs, I believe, were some type of like accredited. It's just a different number, like 1600 or whatever it is. So the one that they required for us was the 17025. I believe I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Don't kill me, lab, if I'm not.
Yeah. Don't hold her to it.
But so we went through that recently. We go through those audits as well as state audits, which we just went through and passed as well. So we make sure the biggest thing at DigiPath that I've learned in May of 2020 will have been operational for 5 years. And something I learned in year 1 was never ask for forgiveness. You know what I mean? Always ask for permission. Just call and ask. If you have a question, don't try to interpret it. Don't try to think you know what you're doing. It's just easier to call your auditor or the state and say, hey, this has happened or this is happening. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And sometimes they won't have the answer, and sometimes it's going to take a little bit of time, and that's really hard for everybody. For instance, our 72-hour turnaround is never fast enough. It couldn't be, you couldn't get results out fast enough. Of course. So again, anything to delay it, I know hurts business sometimes, but I think sometimes you have to weigh the option of, are you going to get suspended and take the time off for whatever they think you did incorrectly?
Yeah.
Because you didn't ask. And and again, I've been in situations where we didn't even think what we were doing was incorrect. We thought what we were doing was right, and we still got in, trouble, essentially.
Of course. Which is not hard to do with them.
Right. And what we did is we took it as an opportunity to build a relationship with them. So we went in, the following day and sat down with the head of taxation and said, I think there was even apologies exchanged at one point between my CEO and the head of taxation. And so we had opted at that point, like you guys were mentioning, when you're going through a suspension, you'll get what's called a plan of correction or a POC. Mm-hmm. And within it, it will give you the NACs that you have essentially the laws you've broken, right? So NAC 453A and D are the laws that we abide by, medical and recreational. And so from that plan of correction, they'll list out what NAC you've been deficient in. From there, you come up with a plan of correction, I believe within 10 days, and you submit it to the state, and then they let you do your thing, as long as they're happy with your plan of correction.
So I guess my question is like, when people are doing tests, are there ways, like, so also in the news probably like a couple months ago, right, there was failed flour that hit the market. What's like that type of protocol, right? Obviously, if it hits the market, it has to get lab tested to be in a dispensary. So does that fall back on the lab? Does it fall back on the grower? Is that on the dispensary? How does that work? How does failed weed get onto a shelf?
That was a sticky situation. I really feel for everybody involved, especially the consumers and patients. But I will again commend the state in that they owned up, sent a letter out to every patient. That's big time. You don't really see a lot of that in other states.
Of course.
Saying, look, there's a recall. If you have this, beware, So I give them kudos for that, for sure. From the testing perspective, it's, again, I chalk it up to each lab's different method. How did one lab test it versus another? There's also a term that I think, we all hear, or it's almost been created in the lab world, as like a hot bud, and it's the stupidest. It sounds stupid, but essentially, what could a bud be, a clean bud over here, could be a dirty one over here. And when you're randomly selecting from 5 pounds, it's easy to, again, pick a bud that is clean versus dirty.
Of course.
And so there's been definitely times where I think it goes both ways, where someone will fail with us and pass at another lab, and then we've had times where we've passed people that have failed at other places. I always make sure too, though, that if that's the situation, because that's a retest, so that's a required state retest. The state chooses the third-party lab that will retest that product. They come in, they pick it up. Has to be bagged and sealed and marked and dated, and again tested by this other lab. Now those results I always compare to the initial ones because I'm just curious. I want to know how far off, how distant was it. And for the most part, we're never really too far off from THC from what I've seen, which has been very comforting for me. Yeah. Because we hear a lot of that too, these huge variances. I can't say that I have a ton of data to go based off of, but I have more than a couple handfuls of retests that show our THCs are pretty much the same, our terps are very similar, our heavy metals are similar, but what you'll see is a difference in variance between pesticides and micro, which seem to be the two kind of most sensitive tests, I would say, and the two tests that have maybe the most difference in how you're performing them. A woman recently did a study on standards. So standards are the standard reference material that you run through your machine to say, look for this pesticide, look for this cannabinoid, look for this terpene. There's probably more than 4, but there's really like 4 major standard companies. The woman who did the study amongst the 4 standard companies said there was a 16% variance. And that's a huge difference to say that one lab orders from, again, one standard company A and the other's ordering from B, and there's that variance between them. You're going to see the difference in the results as well in between the labs.
I'm happy that you brought up cannabinoid. It's cannabinoid.
Cannabinoids.
It's cannabinoid, right?
Cannabinoid.
Is I saying that correctly?
I don't
know.
I think you're right.
Tomato, tomato, whatever. Fuck it.
Cannabinoid.
No, I don't know.
Cannabinoid.
Someone right now. Someone's going bad. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the Culture and Cannabis podcast.
Well, especially from the lab. Yeah. They're like, get her out of there. She's fired.
So
at least I didn't call it a terpine, right?
Yeah, terpine.
I know, it's my favorite.
There's lots of rumors that say people potentially might be paying for higher lab results. Do you see that ever? Obviously, I mean, I don't need you to, plead the fifth here, but is that something that ever happens to you? Do you ever get like, hey,
I would never.
You might never, but is that something you've ever been offered?
I think in the beginning, everybody thought that was the route to take. Mm-hmm. So there would always be kind of like jokes about it, like, oh, give me an empty C of A and I'll fill it out, or silly things like that. I don't think anybody was really too serious about it because we knew how strict everything was going to be. But that was something that, and I started off by saying I would never, because I told my CEO who hired me at the time that I would never lie, cheat, or steal in this industry. I had come and had some black market experience, was no longer a part of that. Was asked about it in my interview, thought it was a trick question. I was like, I don't know if I should answer this. But I just vowed that I would never do lie, cheat, or steal. Mm-hmm. I've heard horror stories of bad business deals, bad partners, people doing stuff under the table. What we're currently going through, look at the black eye that the state currently has right now, unfortunately, because of one person. Everybody else didn't do it, but one person did, and so now it all looks bad.
It's unfortunate that person was on the head of what was going on. Right. So I guess that's where it comes back to. It's like, if someone on that high of a level is potentially taking, dinners and money and sit downs. I don't know the exact details. I don't want to, put claims out there that not true. There's a chance where, someone goes, this is a 20% weed, but I really need to be a 29% weed,
And I think that's, I don't have all the answers, but it seems like that's where a lot of the motivation is coming from, right? So, some buyers will be more inclined to buy, marijuana with a higher percentage, right?
I had a call the buyer today that said, hey, what's the THC percentage? I'm like, oh, you care?
So is that what we should be worried about, Shelby? The percentage?
No,
Why not? Why not?
Because to be honest, too, from a scientific viewpoint, most strains should be reported in ranges. A Gorilla Glue or whatever, a head cheese should be reported in a range.
What do you mean by that?
Like a 25 to 28, that it just consistently comes in between that all the time. That particular strain from that particular grower. But that's also a part of it, is genotyping. So you have to think that eventually people are going to have to start genotyping, which is essentially trademarking your particular strain, tracking its lineage and saying this is what it is, So that's going to have to start happening, in my opinion, if we're going to go out and stake these claims.
So would you say that we kind of need like a culture shift in that?
100%. We've tried to go out and educate on terpenes as so much. Anybody who wants to know about terpenes, please hit Digipath up, because I think that's something that's being so missed. I think it's something that is not being talked about enough. And we did a very large study that Tony has over there, a white paper.
Yeah.
And that study...
It has weed on it, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. That's what it's for, right? No. So it's about. So that study is showing, we tested, I believe it was 600 strains, and that the cannabinoid profiles amongst these strains were so similar. I mean, you can see the charts in there.
Yeah, the
but
charts
the
are
terpene
crazy.
profiles created these 3 individual clusters, really showing us that there's not necessarily 600 different strains, but rather a much smaller number of 3 strains or close to, right? Because we're getting, you're seeing all that data collected into one place, and it's showing really that the terpene profile is what's differentiating it. Don't get me wrong, cannabinoids are super important. I don't want that to be the takeaway from this, but I think terpenes are equally as important, and if not more. Essentially, we're going to start learning that they do a lot more than what we think they do.
Yeah, I feel like it's a general consensus in the people that are actually in the cannabis industry, or people that are very aware of what's going on in the cannabis industry, that terpenes is like, that's the way you're like, as a informed consumer, that's how you should buy. You should be, figure out what terpenes you like, the mix of terpenes you like, and then go search for that. But for the general population, they see, that has 30% THC, that's gonna get me the highest, I'll buy that.
Or that's a sativa, or that's a
hybrid, or that's
And
an
that's
indica.
another myth. Let me, there's another.
Dive on
Let me
that.
shut that one down.
Yeah.
So there's a study that shows that 80% of what we think is a sativa is actually an indica, because of poor crossbreeding over time. Again, no offense to anybody, but if you weren't a professional breeder or aren't a professional breeder, it's hard to do those things, So
Yeah, and this is all
it's
on new science.
again, it's not to insult anyone. It's just to say that it's over time. And I mean, there were times too in the beginning we would see it. We would walk in and someone would say, "Oh, someone said it was Girl Scout cookies, but it really didn't grow out like that. It doesn't smell like it. It doesn't look like it. So I'm going to call it
whatever
peanut butter cookie or whatever." You know. So again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but I think we're going to start to get more sophisticated over time, and people are going to want to start to know these profiles, these chemo profiles, which is terpene and cannabinoid, and again, the almost this lineage of, is it really what it is? And now we have to go back in time a little bit and try to undo some of this breeding and get back some of those sativas. And I think what they're called, like landrace strains, so that they really do exist, because currently you're looking at just either an indica straight up or what we now call a hybrid, because everything is technically a hybrid, in my opinion.
So do you think that it's good that the market is heading towards like the relax, focus, energy, sleep model, or are you not a fan of that?
I think it's in the right direction. I'm a fan of personalized medicine, so I think that's where it's gonna boil down to. I really hope there's the day that I can order, just like someone does their vitamins, and it tells me that I need to take 100 milligrams of THC and 25 milligrams of CBD in the morning or whatever. I like THC a lot, so that's why, if you noticed, that was a low dose of CBD, high THC for your girl. I did that purposely. And then at lunch, and then at dinner, or whatever the case is. That's what I say now. If we were to find the plant now, it would be a miracle drug. We just found it 50, 60 years ago, longer. Obviously, I know it's been thousands and thousands of years, but I'm just saying from the time that it became mainstream and got shut down so quickly, and now we have, really that big stigma being built up, over the short amount of time, what it feels like.
Yeah.
Even though it's been around thousands of years, in a short amount of time, it gained this huge stigma, you know what I mean? And I think that's where we're, still having to fight it and still trying to figure out how to explain. For me, one thing that I explain to people that do have an issue with the product is I relate terpenes to things that they're already eating, and it really does blow someone's mind to say, oh, myrcene in mangoes. Or one time, you'll probably love this, Tony, I had a state person come in, and this was at the very beginning in medical. We were going through micro, and we were explaining something about the way we did micro, because we use a unique asset or a unique method called qPCR. So we look directly into the DNA of micro.
Wow. and
we also use 3M plates, which is like old school high school where you like grow something out and wait for it to grow. So that is also another, that's the easy way to explain it, right?
Oh, okay.
qPCR is just looking directly at the DNA of the bacteria, essentially.
Very expensive machines, sounds like.
I was explaining that to her, this method or whatever, and again, just going through, and one of the things we test for is coliforms. Well, coliforms are in tea, and she just so happened to have a tea, and I was like, oh, well, there's thousands of coliforms in that tea right there, and her face just kind of went flush, people don't realize, beneficial bacteria lives on us, so that was a real hard one. Total aerobic was something that was tested on flour for a really long time, and that was really hard because guys were using beneficial bacteria, again, beneficial, that's not harmful to any of us, and it was making them fail, and that was a hard thing to see. So the state eventually saw that it wasn't harmful to consumers and took it off for flour. So that's, over time, that's what I do see is the state will own up and fix the issue if they see that it's something that, another example of prime one is the piperonal butoxide. It's a pesticide. It's on the pesticide list, but it's an additive. So it kind of like bulks up a pesticide, I guess is the best way to put it, or for me to explain, or explain to me. And I'm just being a mockingbird. But piperonal butoxide wasn't on the list when it was first sent out, and a lot of people were popping for it, but it also wasn't on any of the ingredients of what they were using. So everybody, even the state, was baffled by it. So we started collecting some of these products and testing them directly and finding out they weren't listing it on the ingredients of the product. So people were failing for something, and piperonal butoxide, you can again give it a limit and throw it on the list, and now someone has the chance of no longer failing for something that's not necessarily harmful because it's not even necessarily a pesticide. So that was a big thing in the beginning. The list in the beginning was 81 pesticides. It was
and where did they get the list?
They got the list from hops initially. So we were going to replicate what they did with hops, and my chief science officer took 72 hours. In the beginning we were very diligent with all of this. We moved very fast in the beginning. We knew we had to in the medical market to make a lot of these things stick in the beginning. So yeah, she went through that list of 81 and came down to about 22. And that's about what we're at right now, 23, 24 pesticides from that. Because a lot of it was just absolutely, herbicides and fungicides and things that just wouldn't be necessarily used. They're used on large crops, not indoor crops. So we only have one outdoor right now.
But all labs in this state have to test for the same pesticides and...
Yeah, so we all have the same pesticide list, the same micro, the same heavy metals, the same solvents, the same mycotoxins, which is aflatoxins. Those are toxins produced by fungus. So, for instance, if you get a mold or yeast or a fungus, bud rot, it could potentially produce a toxin, and that would be one of those three. Those are harmful to humans, period. I tell anybody that that ever has that, I've seen it very little, to get rid of it, put the proper PPE on, which is, protective gear, and dispose of it for yourself. Even if the state doesn't tell you to, just for peace of mind of not getting sick. I advise with that. Take it very seriously for anybody. We even had a patient one time come in and get because we test for Nevada patients, test their product, and it had it on there. And it was unfortunate that I had to tell him you couldn't have his medicine, but you got to go to the dispensary, buddy, because that has toxins all over it. You can't smoke it,
Are you still testing a lot of patients, Flower?
I don't have a giant... no, not as much as we were.
Right, but you still have clients.
We still have people that do.
That's cool.
We'll always help out patients.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I fought for that with the state for a very long time to do so, because it's only fair that they should be able to test what they're growing.
Yeah.
No harm, no foul. The results for them look very different. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. They have a big red bar at the top that say patient use only, not for resale. So we did have one person years ago that had kind of fuddled with it, so I got very, very tight on my kind of vetting process now, Of
course.
So when you come in, we go through a little
interview.
We go through a little interview, But we
rough them up a little bit.
Yeah, we do one free sample per patient per month.
Nice.
Yeah, and then
Very cool.
we've also... tried to help with cards still. So if people are having troubles with cards, we tried to help out with that with Cohen Medical. I love them. Robert's great over there.
Shouts out.
So yeah, that was something that was also super, super important to me. I grew up in Vegas, so I wanted to make sure not only did we take care of our cannabis community, make sure our patients were safe first, consumers next, but our outside community. So we do a lot of outside community work with Las Vegas Rescue Mission, the Shade Tree, veterans groups. Most of them have all started and kind of dissolved. So they've started one. Vegas Vets is the newest one, which
Nice.
I love because it's just all of them together. We do have a little event, Taco Tuesday on the 17th. Everyone's welcome.
Taco Tuesday.
Veterans are welcome.
Where at?
Digipath.
Oh,
we do
nice.
it normally with Kushco. Ramina, don't kill me. I was going to come by today. But so we normally just set up tacos outside, cornhole, a couple hours, and just hang out. It's something we do around Christmas time for the past 4 years. We've also done a food drive for the past 4 years with GLP and Essence. Shout out to them. This year we did it with The Source, and I know you guys got Matty Jans on next week, right?
Yeah.
So shout out to him. He was a big part of that. And, it's, again, I say so thank you to all those people because it does take a village to get what we do done, to get done what we do. I know that sounds crazy, but
no, 100%.
Last year we raised almost $50,000 worth of food for the rescue mission, and that supplied them for almost the whole year, as well as the Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners that they do, as well as the daily food that they fill cars up with. I mean, it's just amazing what we've all been able to accomplish. But that was something that was really important to me, was to make sure we did something all the time, whenever we could, to help out our community.
That's so beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
I feel like I haven't asked you enough questions about yourself and like how did you get into the industry and kind of like your background. I kind of want to dive into that. Just kind of like, how did you get involved with all this?
So I was before this, I was the promotions director for 5 radio stations here in Las Vegas.
Nice.
Shout out Beasley Broadcasting. Love those guys. I was, started off as just like a PA girl, get your free Slurpee down at 7-Eleven, and quickly excelled into the promotions director and took over 5 radio stations. I loved it. I thought, I'm a lifer. This is it. Music's it. Music was my life at the time. I loved going to shows, going to concerts. I went to Coachella the first time when I was like 14. I somehow convinced my mom into that. So I just always was a big music junkie, is what I would say. So I just thought, I'm done with music. They'll never get rid of me. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I just had someone above me kind of capped me off and had no intention of letting me grow, and made that very clear to me and the rest of the management team. And it was just painful to watch. I was young, and so I moved on from that, just kind of bowed out gracefully. I still love, again, everybody over there. I'm almost like, that's 6-7 years ago. But I'm so close with so many people over there. I love everybody. I dabbled in environmental contracting after that. I took a hiatus to Montana for a summer, came back, did some environmental contracting. And my mom had a client who kept kind of pushing her for an assistant. Like, do you know anybody? Do you have anybody that you can suggest? And my mom, all the while, was thinking about me, but didn't really want to suggest me. She didn't know if she wanted me to be in the cannabis space or the weed space. So I think like 3 or 4 months later, Todd Dankin at the time was one of her clients. Again, kept begging her and begging her and begging her. She gave him my number, and he had me meet him at a cigar bar on Sahara. And I called my mom and I said, I'm at this place called Enfuego. Is this right? And she goes, oh, yeah, that's my other client. That's Mike Abdullah, Todd's friend. You know, just you're at the right spot. So, I mean, I walk in, I'm in a dress. I have like my stupid little briefcase, and it is like all like mafia guys, you know, smoking cigars. It's like what you picture a cigar shop to be. I'm the only female in there. Have my interview, everything. It was like kind of what I was mentioning earlier. You asked me, had I had any black market experience? Had I ever grown before? Kind of stuff like that. Like stuff I'd never been asked in an interview.
Of course.
Like, this is so weird. And in a cigar bar. Oh, I lit a cigar for the first time. She took a picture and sent it to my mom. It was so funny. It was like, I think a match made right off the bat.
Yeah.
And, hired me right on the spot. I drank a beer with him to celebrate. That was, I was started November 1st, was my hire date in 2014. And November 4th, we received our medical letter saying complete these 7 or 8 things in 18 months, and we'll give you a medical license. Well, we went balls to the wall and had DigiPath built out in about 6 months from that initial letter, and we opened May 23rd of 2015. So again, in May of 2020, we'll be 5 years operational.
That's crazy.
Which is insane to think about.
Yeah, have you
ever been over there?
A 20-year-old company in the cannabis industry.
Yeah. Right, that's what we were all saying. We're trying to figure out what it equates to. It's like dog years.
Yeah, it is dog years.
Weed years.
Yeah, weed years is legit. I have not been over at the DigiPath. I'll have to go check it out soon.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I've been over there.
Oh, I can only imagine.
You get the lab coat, and Shelby takes you. She's like,
you feel cool.
Yeah, she's like, you know, it's like Spider-Man. It's like all like.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning there was so much hesitation to it. Like people were, oh, I've smoked 30, 40 years and I've never died, and I got a lot of that. Hence why I was so quick to go after patients too, because I had this, I'm gonna teach them all. They're gonna love labs. You know, I had this thing about it because I didn't want them to think we were bad guys, because we weren't. We were a service that the state was requiring, and we wanted to come in and just be the best at it and protect. I mean, again, this is the cleanest product in the nation, if not the world. Yeah. And that's so great to be able to say.
100%.
You know, anybody who's coming to visit here, that's just flat out what it is. I think California has some more pesticides that they've added, but that's the only other comparison I could think of that's testing more than we are. So I think there's something to be said about that, and we just took pride in that and have made sure, that is what we stay true to, is protecting the consumer and being accurate. Because if you're not accurate, that was another important thing I have to say, is if you buy all that equipment, you have to hire the right people.
Facts.
Or you've just bought paperweights, so
very, very, very expensive.
Finding the right staff has been something that we take pride in, and our staff right now is, just top of the line. I really couldn't be happier with everybody that we have, from our quality to pesticides to micro to accounting to, everybody, logistics. Connor kills it. It's just fun to see everybody, and we're all seeming to enjoy it right now. So that's also kind of nice. There were lots of scrambles and lots of craziness and stuff like that, but it seems like now it's a little fun. Maybe I'm just thinking. Maybe it's just me. Right?
Everyone else is heading their life. You're just having a great time. Right. You're just in the corner party.
Like, hey guys.
Walking through the lab, everyone's like so depressed.
Hey, I'm having the best fun.
But we don't want to keep you too long. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much. Do you want to plug anything before we dip out of here?
I just, I again want to plug that everyone should ask for their certificates of analysis at the dispensaries.
Ask for the fucking labs, people.
Whoa.
It's important.
Dropping bombs. Love
Ask
it.
for the fucking labs.
Yeah,
it's so important.
I think it's
what the
super
fuck
important.
you're putting in your body.
Yep. We have these patient handbooks if anybody ever wants them. They have these really
These are everywhere, by the way.
They have these interesting charts in the back that coincide with our results, so you can look at these cannabinoid tables with our cannabinoid profiles, and you can really, again, hone in on what medicine is best for you, because I really think that's the direction that this is all going, is personalized medicine.
100%.
Know what you're smoking.
Know what you're smoking. Where can they find you? Where can they find you personally? Where can they find DigiPath? If they want to learn more,
I'm
check
everywhere.
you out.
Everybody, no, I'm just kidding. DigiPathLabs.com. Pretty DIGIPATHLABS.com. The telephone number is 702-209-2429. Goes to my cell phone, so you're calling my cell phone when you call that number, which means we're available 24/7. And again, I try to support those who support us, and Culture and Cannabis has been great to work with, and I love me some Full-Time Tony, and you guys have been awesome to be around, and
we love
super
you guys.
encouraging from all the stuff, even down to the event we had last night, to the I Puff Tough stuff, to just we all have, I think, just this support for each other, and it's really nice.
Yeah,
so thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for being here.
It's been great. Well, I think that's it.
Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I'm Full-Time Tony. You guys know where to find me on Instagram at Full-Time Tony, aka my name is Anthony Lee, and I'm sitting here next to Jason.
Do you want to give your phone number? Or?
Phone number? No. I'm with my guy JC Coates.
We'll see you guys next Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday, same time, same place. MJ Biscon's next week, so it's gonna get hectic as fuck. So hopefully,
Rowdy
we'll,
Piper.
We'll talk about that as well. So you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.